Grant Wiley here from Worthington Publishing, here with episode 14 of Grant's Game Room, which reviews board games, historical-based war games, and games of all types. Today we're going to be reviewing a previous title of ours from 2009. It was Worthington Games' Caesar's Gallic War. My previous one was Falling Sky by GMT Games, which covered the Gallic Revolt in between 59 and 52 BC. This game covers the same time period. I thought it would be a good compare and contrast, so you can watch episode 13 to see what that game has, and then episode 14 to see what this game has. We are in talks with the designer to do a reprint update of this. He wants to add some things to it, and we're all for Daniel Berger. He's done some great games, Hands in the Sea, and this. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. Guys, if you are enjoying these videos and want to see more of them, please go below, click the subscribe button, click the notification icon. You'll be notified when we do new videos. I typically try to do the game review videos on Mondays and Wednesdays. Those are Grant's Game Room reviews. And then on Fridays, I do something called Grant's Game News, which I go around and try and gather news from the game companies from the previous Friday. So for a week-long period. So with that being said, the first thing we always do, let's talk about the components. You get a standard, I think it's 11 by 9 by 2.5 inch box. Nice sturdy box here. Good historical art. There's limited pictures of Caesar and the main general protagonist from this time period for Cingetorix. And this is one, I think it's been used on numerous game covers. The back of the box shows the components. It's a little hidden down here. What you get in each game, what you should get: a cardstock map board, 60 plus blocks, 31 cards, rule book, dice, and label sheet. It's for 2 players. It plays in 2 to 3 hours. Gives you a little bit of history. The sizzle, you know, a little sizzle here, and shows you some of the components. Let's open the box up. Take a look what you get. Okay, again, you get 31 cards. On the back of the cards are a Roman shield. These have square corners. These were back, we were doing games with a previous printer. Some of the cards actually are cut a little uneven here on this deck. That's why we're not using them anymore. But it's perfectly playable. It doesn't affect play. You put them in sleeves and you can't tell anything. Now, on the back is a Roman shield, Caesar's Gallic War. On the front is a number, a tribe name, and a region. And this is the Helvetii. The 3 represents the number of action points on this card. And I'll explain the action points some when we start talking about gameplay. And the tribe, and it shows the region and any special information involved with that card. So that's one of those cards. It's the Helvetii tribe, and what it says is may not be the target of political action in 58 BC. They're color-coded. Britannia, which is a 2, represents the island of Great Britain currently. And it says Romans may not use a neutral tribe activation. Anyway, it explains the rules. Now you get those, and then also with those tribe cards, there are 5 event cards. And what these do is you basically got 2 players. You have the Roman player, and we said the Germanic player, but really it's the Gallic player. But the Germans were stirring stuff up. Even in Falling Sky, you have the German as a 5th player, kind of stirring things up and aggravating both sides. But the cards calls revolts. A couple of minor revolts that activate certain tribes, a massive revolt that activates tribes, and some supply cards. Baggage train, you can add 3 supply points. And we'll get into some of that as we talk about the game rules themselves, the sequence of play, and how you play this. You get 60 plus blocks, a truckload of blocks here in black, green, blue, and gray. The black are the Romans, the blue are the Germanic tribes, the gray and green are the different Gallic tribes. The gray, I believe, were the Celti, and the green were the Aquitania and the... I'm not sure the other, off the top of my head. Get 4 dice. What's the game without dice? John Paninsky's going to tell you soon. Get rules, and the heart of the rules here are eight pages, and that counts this cover that's got a lot of sizzle and talks about components. And then you get some optional rules, a detailed example of play, and that's pretty much it. Some explanation of the event cards, which is pretty good. It fully fleshes out. You know, you only got limited room on a card. If you got a question, this can flesh it out. Read it once, you should have it memorized. Tells you how many cards of each type you should have in the card roster. There's 3 3-value cards, 12 2-value, and 11 1-value cards. Pretty good rules, some good graphics. It's black and white, numbered sections. 8.0 is victory, 8.1 is automatic victory, things like that. So it's referenceable. I'm going to show the label sheet before I show the board. If you've ever played a block game before, you'll recognize all this. We've got a picture of a warrior here in the middle for the Gallic tribes, a tribal name on the side. We used the ABC to determine battle order. So most of the Gallic tribes are C's, most of the Roman legions are A's, which means in battle, A goes before C, A's would roll first. Some of the Germanic tribes, the Germanic leaders are A, and they would go if they were defending before the other group here. The board is a cardstock board, so you know it lays flat. You back fold it, you don't have any problems. Over on the side here, and I'm just going to show you half the board. You have a supply, tribes, control, track, and VP. It's broken up into areas. There's black borders here that delineate the areas, and blue rivers. And what blue rivers do is they limit the number of units that can come across. You have port symbols on some of them that can allow you to get to Britannia back and forth. And then you have forts in some of the areas, which were Gallic strongholds, or depending on the defender. You can see Transalpine Gaul here. This is the Roman starting area, has a fort. Turn track tells you when the Romans get reinforcements. And there's an area here to keep track of neutral tribe political actions where you're changing allegiances of neutral tribes. You've got the Germanic area over here, and a sequence of play down here at the bottom, so you don't have to have the rules right in front of you. You got a sequence of play that kind of walks you through things, and a legend down here for the terrain. I'm gonna backfold this real quick. Come around and show you all the setup, and I'll probably drop this under plexiglass because I don't know about you, but on cardstock or paper mats, I just prefer it. Makes moving pieces easier and less chance of a bump. So that's it for the components. I'll come around, we'll talk about gameplay and how this plays out. Shown here is the opening setup for the game. You can see the tribes are in their tribal areas face down on the board. The standing up tribes. The tribes you see right here are the Alabriges, and the Volcae, which are here, should be face up. They're allied with the Roman player, which starts here. the Germanic player has his tribes, and I've got them facing us just to show you. They would start facing the Germanic player and their tribes allied to them. The Helvetii are over there standing up. I'm going to show you a block just to give you a little more detail. Ugh. Okay, this is the 15th Legion, which is shown up here in the upper left corner. I know this is coming in terrible. Let's get it a little bit closer. You buy this ultra high def camera and you don't get ultra high def. Let me turn off the auto. Anyway, you can also see here, I hope, that there's actually an A in that corner. There we go. Picture of a Roman soldier, 2, how many spaces it can move, and a number of pips along the top. 4, 3, 2, 1. As in most block war games, as a unit gets hit, it gets rotated lower. When it gets reinforced or adds steps, it goes higher. The number of pips in this game is how many dice it rolls in combat. I'll put that back over here on the reinforcement track. The cards here. During a game turn, each side receives 5 cards to play. You keep track of the tribes controlled, victory points, and supply. Down here on this chart, supply becomes important for the Roman player. He starts at 15. Now, draw and play cards. So each side gets 5 cards, and there's Britannia and the Helvetii with a 3. What cards allow you to do is activate face-down neutral legions on the board to ally them to your side. You can play them for the event. You can play them for supply action. You can do a neutral tribe activation. You can play them for a political action, or you can play them for movement. So 2 groups would be activated, 3 with this card, 1. Most cards are 1. There's only 3 threes as I went through in the manifest. During the card action play phase, each player, the Roman would have 5, the Germanic player would have 5. They each play their card face down, the card that they want to play of the 5 from their hand. There are 8 turns in the game from 58 to 51 BC. Now, so that means you're going to play through 40 of these cards because you're going to get 10 a turn, and times 8, there's 80, but you're going to shuffle them as you go through. So you're going to refill your hand to 5 to start the turn. Then you're going to play the card. And as I said, each player will play the card face down, and they each reveal their card, and then the Roman player announces what he's using his card for. Then the Germanic player would announce what he's using his card for. Then that determines in what order that the cards are done. So if the Roman player played this for movement and the Germanic player played this for event, the Germanic player would play the event first, as he would just about any other action, because movement is the last card moved. And I'm going to pop the rules around here for you, and it shows you the play of the cards. Events, supply action, neutral tribe activation, political action, and then movement. That's how the cards are played in that sequence. So if the Roman had played his for supply action and the Germanic had done his for neutral tribe activation, well, supply action occurs before neutral tribe activation. And how supply action works is the Roman player takes the number, adds 1, and adds it to a supply track. The German player, only once Vercingetorix is in the game can he play a supply action. And what he does is he plays the card for supply action and subtracts it from the Roman supply number. Vercingetorix employed a scorched earth defense as he was backing up, and caused the Romans some supply issues. And they're only allowed one supply action when Vercingetorix is in play out of the 5 cards. So in 1 year they could play 1 card for one of their 5 for supply action. Neutral tribe activation. What you do is you try and take a neutral tribe and bring it under your control at full strength. And how you do it is the name on the card must match the name on the neutral tribe that you wish to activate. You can't change control of a tribe that is controlled by another player. So if the Romans control, or the Germanic player controlled the Atrebates and the Roman wanted to take control of them, they could not do that with this card. They could only do it if the tribe was face down like you see them now. So if it was, so the Roman couldn't play it on the Helvetii, and the Germanic player couldn't play it on the Alabriges or the Volcae that the Romans control. And the Roman player is limited to 1 neutral tribe activation per year, as is the Germanic player, although the Germanic player can do 2 neutral tribe activations per year. So they're a little better at riling up the tribes. And when you rile up a tribe, you get all of the blocks with that tribe. So whereas the Pictones have 1 block, the Biterges have 2, the Santones down here have 2, the Averni, who were particularly headache, can't see my finger, can't see my finger, the finger of fate, right there, have 2. The event I've already explained. Political action, you can attempt to change the political allegiance of any tribe on the map, whether it's neutral or controlled by the other player. Now this is a political action, and again, it's done before movement, but after neutral tribe activation. And what's interesting in this is if you played a card for a political action, and your opponent right before you had activated a neutral tribe, then legally by card play you could try to change the political, do the political action on the tribe that your opponent just activated. You roll the die, and it doesn't have to be a card that you control. So I could play the Britannia card and try to change the Alabriges, where are they at? Right here, that the Roman controls. And what you do is you roll, and if it's the action point here or less, then you switch allegiance to that tribe and they rotate around. If Roman units were in there, there'd immediately be a battle between the Roman units and those Alabriges units. Now say the Alabriges were out with the Romans up here in Mendubi or another area fighting. If the Germanic player was able to get a political action and change the allegiance of the Alabriges units would pick up and immediately go back to their home area at their current strength. So, and if there were Roman units there, then the Alabriges would be returning home and be considered the attacker. It's an interesting concept, and if the name of the if I was playing the Alabriges card and attempting to do a political action, then it would subtract 1 on my die roll. Now that's just, again, the actions you can do. You can play the card for the event. You can play it for supply action. For the Germanic player, that only happens if Vercingetorix is on the board. You can only do 1 a year. The Roman player can play his, and he does the action value of the card plus 1. And the Roman player can do any number of those, but it's burning through cards, and they need their cards to roll up through here and eliminate tribes and gain control of tribes. Let's go on to movement. For movement, the value on the card is how many areas may be activated. So, for 1 point, I could activate all those Roman units as they start in 1 area. They do not all have to move to the same area. And when they do, the player that moves first pins a number of units equal to the number of units they move. So if I move 3 Roman units into here with the Alabriges, and they were my enemy, then those 2 blocks could move out. And if 2 more blocks moved in, only 1 more block could move out, if that makes sense. So 3 units prevent 3 units from moving. Any excess could move out of there. Again, you're paying for the area you're starting in to activate. You're not paying for the number of areas entered. So I could move into 6 different areas for those units. Now, the lines. Black lines, blue lines. Units moving across black lines, you can move up to 6 units across. So all 6 legions could cross the black line here into the Volkai area. If I'm crossing a blue line, I can only move 2 units. Roman legions have a movement of 2. You can move through areas. So I can take these 6 blocks through an enemy area and leave 2 to pin those and move on with the other 4. So I could go 1, 2. For a supply point per unit, I could move them a 3rd area. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on combat and movement here. Try to keep these videos short. Combat is the standard combat for blocks. The defender rolls first. You see areas with forts. Battle, you roll a number of dice equal to your battle number. So if I've got 4 pips, the unit rolls 4. The unit's battle rating. Guys, correction on the movement real quick. I just messed up on that just because I was thinking of a different game. The movement rate is 1 area per turn. The number in the bottom right is the unit's battle number. So for these Roman units, in battle, a 2 or less hits the opponent. They'd roll 4 dice and a 2 or less would hit the opponent. And some units are better than others. These Alabrigis have a 2 battle rating. They're a C block. Where's Caesar? Caesar, the 10th Legion here, and I'm not sure how well I can get them zoomed in. Let's zoom out. Woo. There we go. That's better. Caesar has a battle rating of 3, so he'd roll 4 dice and hit on 3 or less. He'd also roll first, which is delineated by the A. Now, it's been a while since I've played this. One of the cool parts of the game, though, once you do all your battles, and you know, again, typical battles, there's no battle board for this. You're trying to score hits on your opponent. And how the battle rounds go is, once you're in battle, well, battles can be fought as the result of an event, political action, or movement card. And each unit gets to fire, retreat, or pass during the battle round. You can bring in reserves. You got battle modifiers. Defending units that are attacked across the Rhine, which the Blue River up here, either into or out of Germania, you get a +1 bonus on your first round of battle. If you're in a fortified town area, which are delineated by forts on the board, you can see one here in the Beturges area, and also one up here by the Averni, which is Gorgovia. They get a +1 battle rating in the first for the well, they get an A initiative for the entire battle, and then they also receive a +1 rating bonus. So if I'm defending in a fort, I'm going to roll first, which is pretty powerful. Roman units can conduct a naval retreat, and if you win a battle, you get to do a regroup, which we don't have in a lot of our other games, but it was pretty cool. Now, much like Falling Sky, there is a end phase here. And at the end of the turn, what you do is, much like in, and I'm flipping through the rules here as we go, because again, it's been a while, but I did read through these earlier. You check the harvest, and what this is it affects the supply limits for each area at the end of the year. So you roll a die, and on a 1 it's a poor harvest, and each area has a supply limit of 1. On a 6 it's a bountiful. It has a supply limit of 3, and on all others are a 2. Gallic tribe units, including leaders in their home area, don't count against the supply limit. You send units home to their home areas in the following order. You send Gallic tribe units back to their home areas first. You send the Roman legions back to their home area. Gallic tribe units then go back controlled by the Roman player. Gallic tribe units controlled by the Gallic player, and then the German units go back to their area over here at Germania. Then Roman. Then what you do is you check tribe area control. You count the number of tribes controlled by each side, and you mark it here on your tribe's controlled marker. If 2 units from one tribe are controlled by both players, the player with the unit in the home area controls that tribe. And if a player ends that count controlling 18 or more tribe players, that player wins immediately. Now the Roman player's got to pay 1 supply point for each unit that stays outside of their legion area. And if not, then they got to spend 1 supply point or lose steps. So if I was out of supply points and I had 8 steps up here in Gaul, those blocks would be eliminated. If I had 4 supply points and 8 steps up here, I would suspend the 4 supply points and eliminate 4 steps from the areas up here. The Roman units can add steps then to their legions. They can only add 1 step per unit if the legion is outside of the Roman home area, which is here. And then they get 1 supply. The Roman receives 1 supply point for each fortified area he controls. The Roman checks for reinforcements, and then eliminated legions go on to the next turn reinforcement. The victory conditions for this game, it's at the end of turn 8, the player with the most victory points wins. The Roman player gets victory points for each German non-leader unit eliminated. They get 2 victory points for eliminating certain Gallic leaders. The German player receives 3 victory points for each Roman legion eliminated. And again, it's automatic victory if the Caesar block is eliminated, or if either side controls 18 or more. Either side controls 18 or more tribes. Guys, that's it for today. Let me do a quick compare and contrast. Falling Sky was printed in 2014, 2015. We printed this in 2009. There's similarities, there's big differences. They each have a end phase with wintering and harvest. You're fighting for control of tribes. They each hit that pretty well. This is a step down in rules from Falling Sky. So if I were to say, depth-wise, Falling Sky is probably a medium, high medium. This is probably a low medium complexity. Each of them had their strengths and weaknesses. The quality of the components with Falling Sky, beat this huge. Well, not huge, but cardstock map versus hard mounted map. Nice cards with rounded corners in theirs. This had squared corners, which I'm not a fan of in games. But sometimes as a game manufacturer, you have to deal with, who you're dealing with. The blocks in this are top quality. The cubes and blocks in that are top quality. The gameplay in this, I prefer. It's a little bit easier, but this is 2-player too. Now that you can do 1 to 4. If you're doing 1 in this, you got to play each side to the best of your ability. But I do that with Falling Sky. There's the big differences between the two. Sorry for the screw up on the movement and the battle rating. It had been a bit, and when I read it earlier, I don't know why. I thought the units could move 2. They can move 1 area, just to be clear. And the 2 in the lower right or lower left corner is the battle rating, and that's the number that you have to roll equal to or less than in battle to score a hit on your opponent. Guys, with that being said, that concludes this video. I hope to do Battle of Britain on Wednesday. I'm reading through the rules now. I want to get a play in. I'd like to have a play in, so that might be Monday. Wednesday, if I don't do Battle of Britain, I'm going to do Caesar at Alesia by Avalon Hill, because I am working on a 40 by 30 inch map, reimagining of that game, and pretty excited about it. I've always been a huge fan of that game and the topic. So with that being said, play a game, teach a game, but most of all, happy gaming.